I guess it's my turn to carry the lantern again. By CynicismNostalgia. So I found a lantern on my front porch this morning. At first I hoped it was some kind of mistake, maybe a neighbor's delivery left at the wrong door. But the longer I stared at it, the more I couldn't kid myself. I knew what it was. It was exactly the same as I remembered. Large and heavy, made of black iron, its glass panels smudged black. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was a prank. But that thought faded as quickly as it came. What kind of prank would this be? What was the punchline? The more I looked, the harder it was to breathe. It wasn't just a lantern. It was the lantern. The one I've tried so hard to forget. I haven't touched it. I don't even know what to do. Call the police? Sure. And what would I say? Hi, officer, there's a haunted lantern on my porch. Can you come pick it up? No. I thought I'd moved past this. I wanted to believe it was all in my head, just a trick my mind played to explain something I was too young to understand. But seeing it here, solid and real, has unraveled years of therapy in an instant. I don't know who else to ask for help. Maybe someone out there has been through something like this before. Please, if you have, let me know. Because all I can think about are the silent streets of Lister Lane, the locked doors, the lantern, and the night it was my turn to carry it. The neighborhood was always unnervingly quiet on lantern nights. No cars on the streets, no dogs barking, not even the chirp of crickets. The only sound was the slow, rhythmic footsteps of the lantern keeper, echoing through the stillness. People locked their doors and drew their curtains long before sunset, shutting out the night as if it were something to be feared. I used to sneak to my bedroom window, pressing my face against the glass and peeking through the blinds, just to catch a glimpse of the flickering flame. It was beautiful, in a strange way. The warm golden light swayed gently with each step. I thought it was mesmerizing. My parents, however, hated when I watched. You shouldn't stare, my mom would say, her voice tight and hurried. No one ever explained why. I wasn't told much about the lantern walk, other than the rules. The lantern must be walked once every week, and never by the same person twice in a row. The lantern must be carried at a steady pace from one end of the street to the other. The walk cannot begin until at least 1 hour after sunset. Under no circumstances can the lantern keeper look behind them before the walk is complete. Whenever I asked for more, for the who, the what, the why, my mom would cut me off. It's tradition, she'd say. You'll understand when you're older. Yeah, that never happened. I remember how nervous my parents always seemed the night before their turn. My dad would pace the house relentlessly, his footsteps heavy and uneven, like he was walking out his fear. If I tried to ask him a question, he'd wave me off or grunt, his mind too preoccupied to form an answer. My mom was different. She'd sit by the window, still as a statue, staring out at the street like she was waiting for something. Or maybe watching for something. Mom, I'd say, but her replies were distant, distracted. Yes, sweetheart. She wasn't really listening. She wasn't really there. It always made me uneasy watching them like that. Two people I relied on so much suddenly turning into strangers for the night. I became pretty independent at a young age. On lantern nights and the nights before, I learned to take care of myself. Making my own dinner, running my own bath, and tucking myself into bed. When my little sister, Danny, was born, I started looking after her, too. I was only 8, but on those nights, I felt like I was the only adult in the house. Even when she was a baby, I'd hold her, feed her, and rock her to sleep, while my parents stayed locked in their quiet tension. I know what you might be thinking. How could they leave that much responsibility on a child? But it wasn't like that the rest of the time. My mom was an amazing cook, always surprising us with homemade meals and treats. My dad took me bowling nearly every weekend, always joking that I'd beat him someday. They loved us deeply. But when Lantern Night came around, it was like the weight of it crushed everything else. No matter how much they cared, no matter how strong they were, it broke through. When I turned 13, it was my turn. That evening, just after sunset, there was a quiet knock at the door. No one answered it. My dad didn't even flinch. My mom stayed by the window, as still as she'd been all day. So I opened it. And there it was. The lantern. It was larger up close, and heavier than I expected when I picked it up. Its iron frame cool against my skin. The intricate filigree dug into my palms, making it hard to hold. The glass panels streaked with black mold. My dad appeared beside me, resting a shaky hand on my shoulder. He didn't say anything, just gave me a quick squeeze before stepping away. My mom followed. She grabbed my arm, her fingers cold, and whispered, "Don't look back." Her voice was soft but urgent, trembling with something I couldn't name. "No matter what," she added. Then she let me go. I stepped out into the night. Thankfully, we lived near the entrance to the street. I didn't have to go far to reach the starting point. I got to the entrance and, gripping the lantern tightly, started counting houses. Lister Lane was empty. Not just quiet, but empty. It felt wrong, like the air had been sucked out of the street. The houses looked different in the lantern's glow. Bigger, darker, their edges blurring into shadows that seemed to stretch and ripple. For some reason, the street lamps never worked on lantern nights. They were just tall, dark silhouettes, looming like sentinels. The only light came from a few faintly glowing windows and the lantern itself. The flame flickered softly, its warm glow steady against the chill in the air. I kept walking, my footsteps the only sound. I'd made it halfway, and honestly, it wasn't that scary. I knew this street like the back of my hand. Every adult had been a lantern keeper before me, and they always seemed fine afterward. Tired, maybe, but fine. There had never been a struggle, a scream, or even a whisper of something going wrong. I told myself it was just another chore, like taking out the trash. I glanced at the flame, its warm glow steady and soothing, and before I realized it, a faint smile crept onto my face. It wasn't so bad. In fact, it was kind of nice. There was something surreal about actually holding the light I used to sneak glimpses of every week. It felt like I was part of something bigger, a tradition I'd watched but never really understood. For a moment, I forgot the rules, the tension, the unease I'd seen in my parents. For a moment, it felt almost peaceful. But then I heard it. A voice, soft and trembling, cutting through the stillness. It was my sister, Danny. She was calling my name. I froze. Her voice sounded so small, so scared. My heart jumped to my throat. How had she managed to sneak out? My first instinct was to turn around, to make sure she was okay. But then I remembered the rule. "Get back inside, Danny," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "You know you shouldn't be out here." She whimpered softly, the kind of sound she used to make when she was hurt or frightened. I sighed. Traditions be damned. I wasn't going to leave her outside in the middle of the night. I was already bracing myself to turn, ready to tell her off and walk her back home, when I felt it. Her arms wrapped around my waist from behind, trembling violently. "I looked," she whispered, her voice breaking like glass. I froze, every muscle in my body locking up as her words sank in. "I looked back," she repeated, and then the sobs came. Frantic, desperate, choking sobs. Her grip tightened like she was holding on for dear life. "Please," she begged, her voice raw. "Take me home." We were still only halfway down the street, and I hadn't looked back. I gripped the lantern tightly in one arm, shifting it to free the other. Without turning, I reached back toward her. "Hold my hand," I said, keeping my voice as calm as I could. "We'll finish together." She didn't respond, but I felt her cold, trembling fingers slip into mine. Her grip was weak at first, but it tightened quickly, as if she was afraid to let go as she cried into my back. The walk felt so much longer with Danny in tow, her feet shuffling behind me, clumsy and uneven. "Are you okay?" I asked softly, trying not to sound scared. She didn't answer. Instead, she squeezed my hand tighter, her grip cold and desperate. I felt her other hand clutch the back of my shirt, her fingers trembling as she buried her face against me. Her sobs didn't stop. If anything, they grew quieter, but heavier, like she was trying to hold them back. She stumbled behind me, her feet catching on mine every few steps, nearly tripping me more than once. "Danny," I whispered, glancing down at the lantern's flickering glow. "We're almost there. Just hold on." Her cries began to fade, softening into quiet whimpers, each one growing weaker and weaker. By the time we neared the end of the street, there was nothing. No sound, no cold, no small presence clutching at my back, no small hand in mine. I froze, gripping the lantern tightly as my heart pounded in my chest. "Danny?" I whispered, looking down. She was gone. I panicked. I had just held her hand in mine. She had been right there. My heart raced as I spun around instinctively, desperate to see where she had gone. It was only for a second, and the lantern's flame went out. The street plunged into darkness, and the faint, warm glow from the neighbors' windows vanished with it, like someone had snuffed out the entire world. The silence was absolute, pressing down on me like a weight. Then came footsteps. Slow, deliberate, impossibly heavy. Each one echoed in the stillness, sending a chill straight through me. They quickened. The sound grew louder, closer, faster, sprinting toward me at a speed that didn't sound human. I screamed, shut my eyes, and froze in place. My whole body trembled, every nerve on fire, waiting for the impact of whatever was coming. But nothing came. The footsteps stopped as suddenly as they had started, leaving only an empty, suffocating silence. I don't know how long I stood there, clutching the dark lantern in my trembling hands, too terrified to move. Nobody came to check on the blood-curdling scream I made. Not a single door opened, not a single curtain shifted. The street remained silent, still, like nothing had happened. I called out for Danny, but there was no response, no sign of her. I searched for her, but she was nowhere to be found. The street felt endless, stretching farther with every step I took, the darkness pressing in around me. Eventually, I gave up. I made it home, dropping the lantern carefully on the front porch. My legs were shaking, my hands numb, but its weight still lingered in my palms, like I could still feel the cold iron digging into my skin. When I stepped through the door, my family was waiting in the kitchen, but something about their faces made me stop cold. Danny was sitting at the table, staring down at her hands. Her shoulders were hunched, and she looked so small, so fragile. "Danny?" I whispered. She flinched at the sound of my voice, her head snapping up briefly before she bolted from the room and ran upstairs. I turned to my dad, but he wouldn't look at me. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the far wall like he hadn't noticed I'd even come in. My mom didn't say anything either. She just stood there, arms folded, her face pale and drawn. "Mom?" I tried. She shook her head, her lips pressed into a thin, unyielding line. Over the next few weeks, it only got worse. My parents barely spoke to me, avoiding me like I wasn't even there. Danny refused to be alone in a room with me, her wide, frightened eyes darting away whenever I tried to talk to her. It was like I'd become a stranger in my own house, like they didn't even recognize me anymore. Meals were never plated up for me again, and bowling nights became a distant memory. By the time I turned 18, not much had changed. The distance between me and my family had grown into a chasm I couldn't cross. Conversations were clipped, interactions tense, and Danny still refused to be anywhere near me. It wasn't just avoidance anymore. It felt like fear. It was like my family had disowned me without saying the words out loud. They never acknowledged what happened that night, and I was never given the lantern again. I moved out of state as soon as I could, desperate to leave it all behind. Eventually, I started a family of my own. We settled in a quiet suburb, far from Lister Lane. It's the kind of neighborhood where kids ride bikes on the sidewalk and porch lights stay on all night. We've built a nice life for ourselves. And now, the lantern is sitting on my porch. This morning, I decided to call my parents. I don't know what I was expecting, but to my surprise, my mom picked up after only a few rings. Her voice was bright and warm, not at all the surprised tone of a woman that hadn't heard from her daughter in 14 years. "Hello, honey. What's got you calling this early?" I hesitated. Hey, Mom. I had some questions about the lantern." She cut me off with a soft, bemused laugh. "Lantern? What lantern?" "The one the neighborhood carried through the street every week," I said, gripping the phone tighter. There was a pause, and for a moment I thought maybe she understood. But when she spoke again, her voice was calm and dismissive. "Sweetie, are you feeling all right? Have you been eating properly? We're making a roast this Sunday. You're always welcome if you can make it down." I hung up without saying another word. An unknown number called me about 20 minutes later. I paused, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then I answered. "Sis? Why'd you hang up on Mom? Are you okay?" It was Danny. Her voice was bubbly, bright, concerned but casual, like we'd just spoken yesterday. But it was strange. She sounded the same, but different. I haven't heard her voice since she was 10, since the day I left. It was like hearing a stranger wearing my sister's tone, her inflection, her laugh. I stammered, struggling to find the words. "Do you remember the lantern?" She paused, then let out a soft scoff, followed by a confused laugh. "What are you talking about?" "You can't be serious," I said, my voice shaking. "Honestly, I don't know what you're talking about. Are you okay? You're scaring me a little. I can drive down if you want." I hung up. Her voice had been calm, warm, completely unaffected, just like Mom's. Then there was Dad's voicemail, which arrived not long after. It was short and cheerful, as though nothing had ever happened. "Hey, kiddo. Heard you talk to Mom and Danny today. Just checking in. Let me know if you want to go bowling next time you're in town." It was all wrong. So wrong. Now I'm sitting here, staring at the lantern on my porch. The flame is lit, its glow steady but faint, casting long shadows that dance against my patio. My phone sits beside me, vibrating every few minutes with another voicemail. My mom, my dad, even Danny. They're all worried now. I haven't listened to them. I can't. Because I hear it again. The footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and impossibly heavy. Thank you guys for listening to this story by CynicismNostalgia. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and it'll be linked in the description below. I hope to see you all in the next video, but until then, goodbye.